Hi people, moin even Bakirgin as always and as usual. Yeah, as you can tell based on the header, this is going to be Kabbalah for Dummies. I'm simply explaining, or I'm going to explain here how the Kabbalah works in the most simplistic way I can think of explaining it. Now, as you see before you here, you have a GIF image. So GIF means moving image, GIF. A graphics interface image of the tree of life. Now, ignore the always under construction. That's just a clever phrase, okay? In any case, the Kabbalah simply stands for, loosely put by definition, again, anything interesting, find it linked in the description of this video. I'm not going to talk a lot. The Kabbalah simply loosely stands for the an explanation on how the universe works and how everything we see around us, include obviously the material world, how the entire universe that shapes reality as we experience it is configured. Okay, now I'm simply going to use this construction of the tree of life to show you, or to explain it to you, better said. The tree of life is a symbol thereof. The tree of life is obviously not a literal tree. It's simply a construct that showcases in a graph or chart-like manner how the universe is constructed, and obviously how essentially everything comes into existence for every one of us, okay, through God's supreme will, supreme and almighty will. Now, all of this is meant figuratively. Nothing is to be taken literally unless I say so, or unless the context allows for that to be the case. Now, you're seeing here like a Wi-Fi signal with Hebrew letters. Okay, that's because all of this was created by the Kabbalah is Jewish in nature, Jewish mysticism, Jewish/Christian, but in origin it's Jewish. That's why you're seeing Hebrew letters. Now, the whole point where you see this Wi-Fi looking signal with like 4 bows, like here, literally here, that is in Hebrew called Ein Sof. Ein Sof, loosely translated as far as I know, or literally one of the two, means without nothingness. Simply put, this simply stands for God's power. This simply stands for Father, His power, within the context of what we're discussing. Bear in mind, specifically within the context of what we're discussing. Now, next up here, we have the first sphere. In Hebrew, this is called Keter. Now, and it's usually represented by the planet Uranus. You don't have to worry about planetary correspondences or affiliations. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just listen to what I'm saying, period. Now, this is the first aspect of creation. All of these balls that you're seeing are aspects of creation. In Hebrew, they're called Sephirah. And essentially, all of these balls are called the Sephirot on the tree of life. Now, again, you don't have to focus on the details or anything like that. I'm just bringing this up for good measure's sake, for the sake of officiality. This first sphere stands for God's brilliance, essentially. It's essentially God's divine power converted in such a manner that it will shape existence. Okay, as in it will shape creation the way reality as we experience it. So from this point out, it goes all the way to the bottom. So from top to bottom. Now, God's power is inserted here. God inserts His power here within the context of what I'm saying strictly. Because in actuality, God deals with everything. Father is everything and nothing. The Alpha and the Omega, everything. That's why I'm saying strictly, strictly within this context. Now, this is the first aspect of creation, brilliance in general. I don't know what the official, I don't know the official titles by memory because they do have titles, but one word thing is theme-based words that essentially emphasize what they stand for. Don't worry about any of that. This essentially just plainly stands for brilliance. Essentially God's brilliance, His wisdom, His divine might and power metaphorically converted to shape reality. And then it moves through all of these balls. These are all aspects of creation. These are all Sephirah. Now, this black ball that you're seeing here, the white ball, I already explained it just now, brilliance. This black ball here aligns with Saturn. This in Hebrew is called Bina. Now, this simply stands for construction and destruction, albeit in a necessary manner, especially regarding destruction. This simply stands for God's power that shapes everything in the world in a constructive and destructive manner. At its simplest, you can explain it as like a house being broken down so that something new can be built on top of it. Before something is created, what was there in its place, provided that there was something there to begin with, which is generally speaking almost always the case at the very least, needs to be dismantled. Okay, so like I said, literally construction and destruction and vice versa. This ball over here, plain and simply, stands for spirituality. It stands for wisdom, understanding. It literally stands for the spiritual aspect of existence as we know it. Okay, as in cosmic wisdom. Now, this red ball here is known as Gebura. It simply stands for severity. It's essentially God's severity. That's why it's signified by the color red. Okay, the fact that it's red already tells you. Red is the color of aggression. Now, Gebura aligns with the planet Mars. And Mars, by default, deals with destruction in a different manner than the black ball. It deals with destruction through violence. It deals with chaos, warfare, bloodshed, any kind of hostility where violence is come into play, or where it happens through aggressive means or through coercive or forceful means. All of that, anything that it resembles intensity, okay, of such a nature, violent levels of intensity, this aspect of creation rules over all of that. So God's power is essentially manifested through all of this. Think of every war in mankind's history. Think of everything from large to small, down to a guy stabbing another guy yelling at another guy. Yeah, generally speaking, this aspect rules over that. This is the aspect of creation, essentially, where specifically the aspect of God's power that sees to that. That's why it's also known as severity. Okay, everything of a severe nature is as such. Now, I'll treat this ball later. You see like a transparent ball here. I'll treat it later. Now, this blue ball is aligns with the planet Jupiter. This is in Hebrew called Cheset, if I'm not mistaken. And the keyword that it signifies by is mercy. This simply stands for all the things relating unto all the aforementioned. Okay, mercy, justice, civility, you name it, all the factors that you would generally speaking attribute to the planet Jupiter for people that are familiar with spirituality. All of those things, okay, good fortune and abundance, all of those forces that provide those with things that you see in reality, that provide you with such, okay, good fortune, the justice system, judicial system, any situation where, for example, people discuss something in a more civil manner and they essentially use logic and just overall judiciality, I want to say, regardless of how they do so, to come to a fair and righteous outcome is ruled, generally speaking, by this aspect of creation. This is essentially the part of God's thingy that stands for peace and harmony within this context, amongst other things, but those are enough examples. Now, this yellow ball here is aligned with the sun. This is in Hebrew called Tiferet. This is the aspect of creation that arguably, not that there is, like I said, only in a matter of speaking is the strongest. It isn't in reality. I'm saying only as a figure of speech. That's why it's in the center of the whole tree of life. This represents the sun, and that's also why the sun is the most important planet for us, definitely, in our solar system. That's why it's called the solar system. If something happens to the sun, oh boy, it's game over for all of us, so to speak, as well as literally, obviously, up to a considerable extent. The sun feeds all life on earth. The sun, generally speaking, stands for life force. This aspect in Hebrew called Tiferet simply stands for God's glory, essentially. It stands for all things that, it just stands for overall life in general. That's why the sun gives light in such a manner that it gives life to everything. Okay, without the sun, the world would be completely dark, and everything that we know pretty much that's alive would die out. You can say loosely put, at the very least loosely put, that we can't live without the sun. We can't live without the sun, and that's what this stands for. But it's not to be taken literally. It simply stands for the spiritual aspect of God's power that, to us, what shapes reality, it shapes reality for us in such a manner that it simply stands for life force. It gives all of us life force. It just stands for plain life. It breathes life into you, literally and figuratively, amongst other things. Now, this orange looking sphere aligns with the planet Mercury. This is in Hebrew known as Hod. H-O-D, that's how it's spelled. Now, similar to the planet Mercury, for people that are obviously familiar with spirituality at a base level, and then some, This stands for the aspects of God's creation, of God's power, that deals with thought processes, that deals with the mind, thinking, the very concept of thinking, of rationalization, and a bunch of other things, again, amongst other things, but those are enough examples. This sphere deals with that. So this is part of God's power manifested in reality as we experience it, specifically manifesting thoughts the way we experience it, the very definition we give to thoughts, the ability to think, to rationalize. This sphere sees to all of that. Next up, we have the sphere that's green, aligning with the planet Venus. And Venus, in thingy, in Hebrew is called Netzach, Netzach. Now, Venus, okay, or the sphere, better said, that represents Venus, or better said, the sphere other way around, the sphere that Venus is attributed to, planetarily speaking. This sphere is part of God's energy, God's power that manifests for us, shaping reality in such a manner that it creates beauty. That's why the key word for this sphere is beauty. Okay? Everything that you attribute to beauty. What makes something beautiful? Something is beautiful when it's refined, when it's polished. Raw things, did you ever call something raw beautiful? No, it needs to have some kind of polishment to it. It needs to be polished. It needs to have some level of refinement to the point where it is better compared to its temporaries, in the sense that it's simply more refined and therefore more appealing, whether it's metaphorically, literally, spiritually, physically. It's overall more appealing. Yes, and that's why this aspect of God's power is simply manifested for us as reality, beauty. That's also why it's associated with the planet Venus, because Venus deals with beauty. Okay, all things that you call beautiful. Okay, that's why, for example, you call a beautiful woman a Venusian goddess, so to speak. Some people call them that. All of that is for a reason. Now, the purple orb you see here, in Hebrew that is called Yesod, Yesod, and the planet that it's associated with it is the moon. Now, this sphere, okay, is God's power manifested spiritually, but within a different context than this sphere, because I also said the same thing. Okay, this is essentially spirituality manifested, okay, or God's will manifested spirituality for us, the way we experience reality, but in a more straightforward and watered down manner compared to this sphere. This sphere stands for upper levels of cosmic wisdom, like really high-end cosmic wisdom by human standards, or by mundane standards, if you will. And this sphere, obviously not meant offensively to any of these spheres, the concept of offensiveness doesn't apply. This sphere simply stands for spirituality, amongst other things, all things you attribute to the moon. General clairvoyance, being able to essentially interact with any kind of energy in a more straightforward, basic manner, in a manner that is more comprehensible to people. And as you can tell or see for yourself, based on the way that the GIF image is configured, this is the last sphere, this is the last ball. This ball represents the earth, as in, not literally the earth, it does literally, but also spiritually as well as literally. That's why you're seeing all of it ending here, because this is reality. All of us, everything we see, hear and feel, the way we experience reality, all of it. That's why you're seeing that this ball has like multiple colors, because all the elements that we know that make up the world, just look at the earth around you. It's comprised of fire, air, the earth, and water. Like that. All these elements create reality around us. Everything we see, hear, feel, the air we breathe, all of that is this sphere. Okay, the spiritual version of this sphere manifests reality, physical reality, the way we see it. So this is it. Okay, this is how God's power manifests reality as we comprehend it. And that's what the Kabbalah in a nutshell stands for. Okay, and that's why in any person that's even remotely clairvoyant will completely understand all of this. Okay, because that's also why all of these, why they have planetary attributes and alignments. The planet Mars deals with aggression and violence and hatred, so to speak, and all of that stuff. The upper planet stands for the utmost wisdom. It stands for true divinity, coming into contact with true divinity. The sphere representing, or the sphere associated with Saturn, stands for necessary evils, if you will. That's why it has the color black. Okay, it stands for stuff that's necessary, stuff that might be unpleasant at sometimes and yet necessary. So bad things happening, but it's a good thing that it happens. All of these energies, they don't specifically flow in the pattern that you're seeing in this image. They can flow, generally speaking, up and down and whatnot, but this is the general flow of things. It starts at the top. The way you see this ball of light literally going like a ping pong ball all the way at the end, that is the general manner or the general way in which God's power flows through the entire system and shapes reality as we see it. That's a layman explanation for the Kabbalah. That's what the Kabbalah stands for. Okay, and that's what the Tree of Life stands for. All of it is purely spiritual. Everything, existence as we know it and as we experience it, this is where it comes from. And this is how all of it works. And for example, for practitioners of the art, so magicians and other occultists out there, you guys are already familiar with this, everything I said. Obviously you haven't, at the very least most likely you haven't heard it explained as well as I did, obviously, but it's me. Not that I think too highly of myself, but I don't care. So yeah, you guys are familiar with everything I said. And but even for the average person, for example, you go to a spellcaster and it's a legitimate spellcaster. The person casts a spell for you, or the person summons a spirit to help you. How that spirit will work is that specifically applicable to your personal life, aspects of these things will change, because what you're seeing here, the Tree of Life, is metaphorically inside all of us. It shapes not just existence as we know it, but all of these forces constantly also shape reality as we experience it. It's like the blood flowing through your veins. And this is metaphorically the heart, and it pumps blood through your entire body, to every part of your body, to see to it that everything keeps working the way it does. And for example, people that are afflicted somehow, people that have issues or difficulties in any way, shape or form, like people that suffer from mental illness and whatnot. For example, for the strictly and only applicable to these people, this part of you, for example, is afflicted. For example, you were born when this sphere was weak. Well, better said, the planet that is associated with this sphere, which in this case would be Neptune, since this is the sphere known as Shokma, is afflicted. Let's just say Neptune was in a weak zodiac sign when you were born. Bottom line is Neptune was weak. Neptune wasn't strong. It will cause mental issues, because see what happens? The energy flows down, and here the energy will experience issues. The same way that the way blood flows through your body. If, for example, you have some kind of, I think it's called a pulmonary embolism. If you have some kind of blood clot in your arm, then blood is going to have a hard time flowing through your arm. Let's just say you have a blood clot in your shoulder, near your collarbone. Like, by the time the blood reaches your hand, there is like a substantial, or at the very least minor delay. And as a result, you're going to experience issues. Your left arm is going to get more tired. You're going to experience like twitching and potentially superficial arthritis on your left arm. Your left arm will be weak, significantly weaker than your right arm. It just goes on. Okay? In that same context, if you were born and this sphere, for example, and the forces specifically that represent this sphere or that this sphere is associated with, they weren't at their strongest, they weren't the best, so to speak, at their most appealing, then you're going to experience issues, because the flow of energy, the same trajectory it takes in general, or regardless of what the trajectory it takes, by the time that all the things that contribute you to who you are spiritually, you just personality-wise, they arrive here and they manifest realistically, then you can already see what time it is. Okay, it's going to manifest here, and it's going to be slower compared to all the other spheres and the energies that they give off and contribute to the being that is you. And as a result, you're going to be thinking, you're going to have difficulties. You're going to either be mentally slow, or you're going to be mentally ill. You can have a substantial mental disorder. It could be autism. It could be anything, honestly. Although classically speaking, dysphere would be more associated with autism. But that's only within a specific context. Generally speaking, you will have mental health issues. End of story. It could be anything from erratic behavior, you name it. You'll have a mental disorder or two, to say the least. All of this is normal. You'll have some kind of mental deficiency, not to the point where it makes you like unable to function in society as well as a human being overall, but there will be some kind of metaphorical setback or minor metaphorically negative happenstance in relation to you. So this concept applies not just to existence as a whole, as we experience it, the reality, the way I explained, but to all of us as people. Okay, and to all of us as living creatures, honestly. Obviously to whom this applies, but it applies to all of us. So yeah, I can't think of a single entity that it does not apply to. So, I mean, for all of us as living beings that inhabit the material plane, all of us, at the very least, more or less, have to deal with this. So that's my point exactly. A second example I can give is that, for example, I told you this sphere is associated with Mercury, the planet Mercury. And it deals with the forces that it's associated with, deals with thinking. Imagine if this sphere is like that this sphere was weak. When you were born, the planet Mercury wasn't at its strongest. So that simply means that the forces associated with this sphere, they weren't at their best. That will mean that you won't be the brightest thinker or the fastest thinker, or you won't have a quick wit about you or the sharpest mind. You won't be the sharpest tool in the shed, so to speak. So yeah, that's why. So bluntly put, okay, stupid people, more often than not, have issues in this department. People that have difficulty not only formulating thoughts, but also expressing them, have issues in this department, generally speaking. It's not a black and white issue in reality. That depends on a host of factors. Like I said, it's really not black and white. I'm simply explaining it as simple as it can be explained. And like I said, this whole process applies to all of us. Imagine, again, comparing it to your physical body. Imagine if your heart, for example, specifically when it comes to your brain, can't pump blood fast enough to your brain. I mean, only as a figure of speech, because I don't know if exactly that's how it works. But my point is, imagine that your brain doesn't function optimally because the nervous system in your body overall, it suffers from a 1 second delay for whatever reason. You can see that technically speaking, just as for the sake of an example, giving an example, will make you slow. As in, you'll be 1 second behind everybody else that is metaphorically normal and has thoughts connecting easily and quickly. You know, it's like 5 cars driving at the same speed, but one car, for example, can't drive at the literal same speed. One car can only go like, every car can go like 50 miles an hour, and one car is like going at 45 miles an hour. That car will always be like 5 miles behind everyone, provided that they always go at the same speed, at max speeds, on an even playing field, on an even road, for example, on a highway or a speedway. You can imagine what time it is. Okay, that car will always be slightly lagging behind all the other cars. In that same context, adversely, so the other way around, if, for example, forces were going in your favor when you were born, so essentially that's simply your personality shaped, then you can imagine people with, for example, sharp minds, they have a quick wit about them. You say something and these people almost always answer directly. They can formulate their thoughts and express themselves vividly and fluently. Generally speaking, the forces associated with this sphere that represents the planet Mercury, or is associated with such, will be above average in terms of potency and strength overall and virility. And that's why. And it just goes on and on like that. So yeah, that's the Kabbalah for dummies. That's it, guys. I'll hear it if there are any questions. Goodbye.